We have in Acts 17 what is quite a typical pattern in Paul's journeys. He enters a town in some Gentile area and he goes straight to the synagogue and he starts preaching to the Jews, and he makes a big thing about this preaching to the Jews. They're always the first people he preaches to. He makes a few converts, the Jews get angry about it, they chuck him out of the town, often beating him up. And those Jews then go to the next town where he goes to preach, and they stir up opposition and disrupt things there. As a result of all that Jewish opposition, Paul ends up for at least 3 years in prison, and then he goes to Rome, where he stays in prison and he eventually dies. And he lists the huge range of things he suffered at the hands of the Jews. Put together, they would have ruined his health, they'd have left him emotionally and mentally damaged, post-traumatic stress, and so forth. But was all that necessary? Jesus had appointed Peter as the apostle to the Jews and Paul as the apostle to the Gentiles. We might think that was a strange choice. Peter was an illiterate Jewish fisherman from despised Galilee, an area where many Gentiles lived. And Peter was mocked by the Jerusalem Jews as speaking without grammar. Surely Peter would have been the guy to preach to the Gentiles. And Paul, the intellectual rabbi who could argue fluently with the Jews, wouldn't he surely have been better sent off to preach to the Jews? But no, that's not the Lord's way. He used Peter, with all his weakness and lack of apparent erudition and qualification, to convert 3,000 Jews, Orthodox Jews, on the day of Pentecost. Now, no other such mass conversion of Jews or anyone is ever recorded. And I think Paul struggled with that. He wanted to be the apostle to the Jews. He thought he was better qualified than Peter. And so he made life, I suggest, more difficult for himself than it needed to be. If he'd left the Jews alone and just preached to Gentiles as Jesus intended, I wonder if he would have suffered all that he did. He was a great guy. He was a wonderful Christian, no doubt. And of course, Jesus worked through him. But we need to ask ourselves whether we're not making life more difficult than it needs to be because we want to go our way in serving the Lord rather than in the clear direction that he has given us.